Hello, welcome to Yesterday's Airlines. In today's video, first off, I'd like to say Merry Christmas to everyone. I hope you had a great Christmas weekend. And if you're back to work now, then at least you've got New Year's coming up. But in between Christmas and New Year's, I found some time to take a look at the new ngmodels Boeing 737 MAX samples. I've already published over at the website yesterdaysairlines.com, so if you haven't checked out that detailed review, then please do so. But in this video, we're going to take a look around the models on the video, as always, when I have sample molds, to get a closer look. Okay, as you can see, NG have been kind enough to send through both a 737 MAX-8 and a 737 MAX-9. They're the two in-service variants at the moment. Both the MAX-7 and the MAX-10 are delayed. Certification is proving to be a challenge. I'm sure they'll get there eventually, but they're not in service. And I imagine that when they do get closer, it's very quick and easy for NG to shrink and stretch to get those two variants. But for the moment, we've just got the MAX-8 and the MAX-9, which is the same as the other manufacturers have as well. Now, I've seen a rather mixed reaction to these NG Maxes on social media and on the forums. Obviously, older collectors like myself would probably prefer some classics. However, a lot of other people are super excited for them as well. So it's the usual. You can't please everyone, and NG don't need to. There are going to be thousands and thousands of Maxes in service for the next 20, 30 years. So it seems kind of crazy if you're a 400 scale manufacturer and you actually want to compete to not have a 737 MAX mold. So even as a classic collector, it's easy to forgive the fact that these molds have been produced, especially as it's pretty clear that NG are super keen to attack and compete with the existing brands, especially it looks like Phoenix and Gemini. So it's not surprising that they have produced Maxes, because this is core business for the other brands as well. There's a lot of potential for these molds, not necessarily models I'm going to buy, but hey, there's lots of people out there who collect modern airliners. There's going to be a lot of new MAX liveries. So let's get in and look in some detail at these molds. But before I do, obviously, as always, please subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the videos. Chuck a like on this one, that would be nice. And feel free to leave a comment. Tell me what you think about the models. Also, check me out at Instagram, at YesToAirlines, and on Facebook. I post a lot of these kind of videos. I obviously have connections with many of the manufacturers, not just NG, but also Aviation 400, Fantasy Wings, and others. And therefore, I get access to news earlier than many and get to do these really cool videos and get access to sample molds. So there's a lot of good stuff on the channels coming up. Okay, but that's enough of that. Let's get in and take it to the max. Okay, so we'll start with the 737 MAX-8, which obviously has the lion's share of the deliveries and orders of the real aircraft, being the original, the first variant. It's the same length as the 737-800, so it makes a good comparison with the 800 series. And you'll notice straight away that this model isn't on a stand, and much like the NG 737s, this NG Max does not have a stand hole. So when you look over the bottom, there's no stand hole, which is interesting. I don't know why they left the stand hole off their 737s. Interestingly, the A320 series does have the stand hole. So that is unusual. Maybe it's because the fuselage for this is derived from the NG series and they just didn't put a stand hole in it. I know that's annoyed some people at times. Doesn't really have any impact on the model. Surely you don't put many 737 sized aircraft on stands. I tend to put the larger aircraft on stands because they also take up more space. But each to their own. It would be nice to have a stand hole. Hardly a deal breaker, but just be aware of that. Anyway, looking at the model itself, as you can see, it's going to be sharing a good chunk of the 737 next generation molds components. And that's not a bad thing, because the NG 737 NG is excellent. Apologies for the noise in the background. That's my dog sleeping and having a dream. I don't want to wake him up. Let's just persist with the video. So when you look at the model itself, let's take away the box for a second. You can see that the aircraft itself looks really good straight away. If we start off at the front of the aeroplane, let's see if I can get the camera to focus that close up. Here we go. Then you've got this really, really nice nose section. It's got effectively the same nose and cockpit region as the 800 mold. Obviously, as I said earlier, I think that the fuselage is derived from the NG, though obviously it's not the same because of the rear. The aircraft is substantially different. And it's got a really nice looking feel, no problems there at all. And when you look at the undercarriage, you've got these really, really nice undercarriage nose gear doors. And one of the things that NG's always done well with their 737s is have really, really nice undercarriage doors, which even have the little curves, the portion where it joins the fuselage. They're really realistic. One thing that I'm less enamored with on this is the length of the undercarriage. Now, I've seen the 737 MAX in person. I saw some in 2018, even in China when I was transiting through Guangzhou. And one of the things you really notice about the type is the length of the nose gear. Obviously, it's been extended only by, I think, 8 inches or so. So it's not that long, but it really stands out when you look at the aircraft. And it is longer than this, I have to say. So this is one of the things I think that they haven't necessarily got right on the mold. Probably the only thing, actually, when you're looking at detail is the length. And if I take one of the NG 737-800 releases I've got, this is a very nice China Southern version. You can see that, yeah, marginally the undercarriage here is shorter, but there are lots of NG 737 releases which basically have undercarriage that's very similar to what you're seeing here on the MAX. And if I take one of the MAX molds that exists in this scale, in this case it's the Panda version, which is very nice, seems to have vanished off the face here. You can see that the undercarriage looks substantially longer and a great deal more MAX-like in my opinion. So I think that even though the undercarriage looks really nice here, it's something which NG need to change. They need to make it longer. And interestingly, when I look at the 9 mold, it does seem like the undercarriage is slightly longer. So maybe it's partly a fit issue, but also I think on the 9 you can see that it's not quite as well fitted in terms of the gear door. So it's hard to say, but I do think that they need to make the gear leg longer on this MAX. That's a definite for me. Now, moving back to the rest of the aeroplane, you can see that it looks very nice. The aircraft has these solid core engines. NG has recently been reverting, if you like, to solid core engines as opposed to hollow engines, because I think they believe that the detail is better when you've got solid core. And I think they're probably right, especially on smaller aircraft like this. Only Phoenix has hollow core engines on their MAX and doesn't really add anything to the model, in my opinion. The engines also look really good here, and they are substantially larger than the engines of the NG series, the next generation series. As you can see here, if you look at the two compared, you can see they are substantially bigger. And they should be. And that's the whole reason why you've got that extended nose gear. So that is good. You've got the chevrons at the back of the engine here. I have to say that they maybe could be a little bit sharper. Let's see if I can get it to focus on those. So they're not bad, but some of them are a little square. But I do think that the engine pylons are very nice and really connect well to the engine and are shaped nicely under the wing. So overall, I think that this is a very successful engine and pylon region for the aircraft. The main gear, incidentally, is the same as the main gear on the next generation mold, so there's nothing really to talk about there. But it looks very nice, and the underbody area, even though it doesn't have a stand hold, looks nice as well. So really there, I think that's excellent. This whole wing join, very tight, really nicely contoured, and that engine region looks good. Coming up to the winglets, and again, I think that NG's done a really good job here. Again, difficult to get the camera focus well on them, but For 400 scale, they're very thin. They're really nicely crafted and contoured. Let's see if I can get them slightly better than that. There we go. And they look really good. To be fair, winglets is one of the areas that I don't think any of the molds particularly have issues with. For the Max, the Gemini versions, winglets look great. So does the Phoenix and the Panda. Even the Aeroclassics has decent winglets. Just doesn't want to focus on these. So overall, I think the wing, this region of the aircraft, is really good. No problems there whatsoever. The wing looks fabulous from the front and from behind. If I was being hypercritical, yeah, like I say, maybe the chevrons could be sharper, but it's really very, you have to get very close to the model to sort of care about that. And from the front, I think engines look really good. Of course, the other area of the aircraft which is different to a next generation 737 is the rear. So let's have a look in that. There we go. You can see that one of the things that NG's done really well here is this new tail cone. This contoured, longer, pointier tail cone that the Max has. Looks really sharp, looks really nice. Still got the tail bumper here. And also, you've got slightly different contouring, as someone pointed out to me, on the horizontal stabilizers, which looks nice. So on the Max, they contour into the fuselage here, slightly further forward, whereas on the NG version of the aircraft, you can see they just kind of join straight to the fuselage. So that's nice. Again, they're picking up the details really well, NG. I believe it's just you using the tail of the 737-800, so there's nothing new there, but it's a really nice tail. It's a nice free rudder and looks really nice. So the back of the aircraft looks really impressive. Absolutely no quarrels or issues there. And something else also which NG has occasionally been criticised for is the height of the window line, and I don't think that there's a problem there with it either on this aircraft. I'll put it back on the box. I think that the height of the window here is very good. Absolutely no real problems with that either. So that's the 737 MAX-8. It's looking really nice. As I say, the only thing which I think really needs modifying is the nose gear height on this aircraft. I mean, that's something which is quite important, and hopefully it's quite easy to fix. But otherwise, the aircraft is looking really good. Okay, so that's the MAX-8. Now let's take a look at its bigger brother, the MAX-9. Obviously, broadly, it's the same, except that the aircraft is longer. It's actually, I believe, marginally longer than the 737-900 as well, only by a couple of inches, but probably the tail cone. Otherwise, it is roughly the same size as the Series 900. Obviously, this is an aircraft which is heavily used by Alaska at the present time, and there's been quite a few releases from Aeroclassics and Gemini in Alaska colours, and you've got to say that it'd be very surprising if NG didn't also release some MAX-9s too in the colours of Alaska, especially since they do have special schemes. As you can see, just like the 8, this is looking fabulous. It's just slightly longer. Nothing really else that's particularly different about it. And overall, the aircraft looks delightful. As I say, it's still got the issue with the nose gear. In this case, I think the doors have not been fitted quite as well. It makes the gear look slightly longer, but it still could do with lengthening. It still, to me, looks a little bit too much like a Series 900 rather than a MAX-9. But overall, you've got to say, this is a superb looking 737. And certainly is going to contend very nicely up against the existing competition, which isn't bad. There are some quite nice 737 MAX molds out there at the moment, so there is significant competition for NG. Okay, I'll just take it off the stand, bring it a bit closer, try and get a bit of a closer view of the aircraft, as I say, from the front again, if we can get the video to focus. So there we go then. Really liking the look of the engine fans. And it's nice to see that the wheels doesn't necessarily sit, it almost sits on the bogie, which has been a criticism of many 737s. It's not something you really notice too much except from the front, but it is a factor, not just for the NG versions, but also through all the Geminis too. I mean, as is often the case with NG molds, they generally come out looking so nice that there's not a lot of criticisms to make, and you feel kind of spoiled nowadays, because if you look back at the history of 737s in 400 scale, especially next generation versions, there are some really dubious molds out there, and these ones are just so nice, so well made, that you can tell they're going to be really good, especially when you combine it with the printing quality which NG produces. So I think that even though Maxes are not a particular feature of my collection, it wouldn't surprise me if I accidentally acquire a few maybe Indonesian Maxes of the sort that would perhaps interest me, and surely eventually China's going to recertify the aircraft and deliveries will restart to Chinese carriers as well. Okay, so that's a quick look round the new 737 MAX samples from NG Models. What I'm going to do is, in another video, I'll take a little bit of a comparison look, have a brief compare of the new MAX-8 from NG here to the existing molds from other brands, and see which of those I think comes out as the winner. But for this video, I just wanted to give you a look around the new samples. I think they're looking really nice. Bit of a change to that nose gear length, and the molds are really good to go. And as I understand it, NG will be announcing new models on these new molds quite early in the new year. So keep an eye out for those. I know that these aren't the 747s lots of people have been waiting for, but at the same time, I think it's a very sensible release, even if not overly exciting. The MAX is an important type. There are a lot of sales to be had. Releasing models of these aircraft. So yeah, it's another winner for NG, I feel, and another step towards what appears to be their domination of the scale. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but you can't really fault the molds they're producing. They are broadly excellent. Okay guys, well, check out my next video, as I say. Thank you very much for watching this one. Hope you've had a great festive period. I'll see you next time.